dive in. Good afternoon, Whale Coin Talk community. My name is Noah. This is the third AMA of today. We got Michael Ma in the house representing CreatorDAO. And Michael, before we get started, do you want to give our audience a quick background of yourself, your career trajectory, how you found out about crypto, and how you ultimately made that leap into the Web3 industry?
Absolutely. I'll start a little bit earlier, but my family came to US with $300, so not a whole lot growing up, but ended up getting really interested in startups in general. So I started a company called TalkBin. I went through a program called Y Combinator. In the early days, ended up growing the business, but ultimately selling it to Google. At Google, I worked as a product manager for a couple of years under Marissa Mayer, leading up today's mobile efforts at Google My Business. So if anybody here ever uses Google Maps to search for a Google business, like a business, you're probably using something our team helped build. And then from there, I fell in love just with helping companies. So that was my foray in the early days into understanding crypto. It was from a tech angle. So I was Y Combinator startups courtier for a long time. I became one of the top referrers at Y Combinator. Ended up starting a venture capital firm pretty soon afterwards. And that venture capital firm, one of the things I ended up doing is I was a Binance lab mentor in the first cohort of Binance lab. So that was my first foray. I was interested in following it. One of my friends started the first crypto companies, and he got me really into it. So through these two different mechanisms, through Binance's experience, because they were looking for somebody with like Y Combinator startups experience, and also through just my friend who started a company called Verum or Mirror at different times. That was the company he did. But just to give you a sense of how OG he was, Nick Szabo used to work at his company. So that's my foray. And then last year, I've been always on the sidelines of just understanding this space, but last year I ended up starting CreatorDAO to really step back into being a founder in the category.
Beautiful, Michael. And there's a lot that we could talk about with respect to you and all that you've accomplished, but we are here today to discuss CreatorDAO. So tell us what it is.
So CreatorDAO's core is, you can think about it as a couple different things. The first part of it is really where I think crypto is really headed. If you look at the different ways, right, Bitcoin as digital gold, Ethereum as programmable money. I think the next generation will be programmable organizations. The other flip side is if you take the crypto out of it, what is it? It's just Y Combinator for creators. And why that's so important is creators are in a unique space where they're poised to, in my opinion, be the next generation of startups. Right? You grew this Twitter space, and now it's FIDS, almost like a real business. It is a real business, right? That's how startups grow. They scale incredibly fast. They have incredible business potential, and so it reminds me of tech in the early days when startups are coming around. So it's both a decentralized way, sort of discovering creators, investing in them, and be part of their journeys.
So, Michael, dive a bit deeper into that. You said that the next generation is going to be programmable organizations. Let's dissect that a bit. What do you mean by that?
So let's start with something really, let's say, simple, right? Like I'm thinking of the best example of this stuff. Like I think Ethereum basically opened this idea. It's like if you do X, we can reward X on the blockchain and really be transparent about it. I mean, that's how all this stuff started. But one of the things it doesn't think about, or really crypto is looking into next, is organizationally how that looks. Right? Most people, if you work at a company, you have a manager. But instead of having a manager, imagine a piece of software telling you, hey, these are the things that can do to help the organization. And those things become adaptable and changeable over time. That's to me what represents a programmable organization. It's organization that in some ways can adapt almost in real time to the situation in a programmable way.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And so with CreatorDAO, I understand that the current mission, I'm going to assume here that you guys are going to have multiple missions in the future, but the current mission is finding the next big creator. Tell us a bit about the search and what sparked the idea, and kind of which period of the life cycle you're in with respect to the journey of finding the next big creator.
Yeah. So a couple different things. Like everything else, you need, like, I think programmable organizations will have tons and tons of different use cases. However, in the short run, you need something that can prove it out. So one of the things I've seen in crypto is governance decisions are really confusing and require a lot of expertise. And so you can go on Snapshot and pick any of the top DAOs, organizations, and a lot of times you'll be like, okay, what should the yield curve be? Or, okay, we're thinking about using this zero knowledge proof to do X. What should we use? These are really technical questions that honestly the average person is not going to be equipped to answer. However, for DAOs to get to the next 10 to 100 million users, you need something that people can understand really easily. Which to me is like, hey, if everybody here probably has an opinion, if I'm like, oh, should we invest in Logan Paul versus Charlie D'Amelio? That's a question that actually everybody's equipped to answer. Even if you don't know those names, you can watch their videos and be like, okay, this person's more funny to me. And so there's this idea of like, let's take this use case of decentralization. Let's do a couple of things. Let's, number one, instead of us having a point of view, like imagine just like if we were to start a VC fund, instead of me hiring 10,000 analysts to go on there and be like, hey, look for creators, I was like, hey, we'll open up to the world. And instead of me being like, let me review all these business plans as a Hollywood or like a VC, let me just see what the world is decides who they think is best. And then we take it to our DAO governance committee, which is like full of some of the biggest creators in the world, and be like, hey, now you decide who we should be investing in. And so we can decentralize it. If you look at a VC job, a venture capital job, right, which I was doing for a long time, it comes down to sourcing, investment judgment, supporting companies. And you can decentralize the sourcing and investment judgment part using blockchain. So that's what we did. The search was this idea. And again, I don't know if we'll find an expert creator, but we found some really interesting people. And we got today probably, if it was on chain, the biggest vote that ever occurred. And so I think what Reddit did that was really smart was instead of making it about NFTs, they're like, hey, this is, digital collectibles. Who wants to buy it? And then, they created millions of wallets at once. Similarly, instead of us saying, hey, this is a big governance vote, how do you think about governance? We're like, hey, just vote for a creator you'd want to invest in if you were in charge of this decision. And we got close to half of it, like 450,000 votes, 480,000, which is bigger than any votes ever occurred in any DAO in history, actually. So that's how we look at it. How do we get people to make decentralized decisions and actually lead to better decision making?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and bringing it back to the search, what are some metrics that people are looking at, or at least you're encouraging people to look at when choosing the winner of this $1 million investment, this fund?
So we choose a bunch of different things, but we basically want users to think who here could be like the next Mr. Beast, right? Who can use a creator brand to start businesses and become investable over time? And interesting thing is when people have that prompt, it's actually not as tough as you think to sort of understand that. Because everybody, if you watch YouTube, knows who Mr. Beast is, or they know like what a Rihanna or Kardashian's done. They're like, okay, how entertaining are they? And how much applicability to becoming a business is there? And the great thing is like, we got something like 25 million views in all the videos that were watched, again, thousands and thousands of people submitted, is that people just need to watch the videos. There's no need to understand honestly crypto or really complicated mechanics around DAOs, you know, like imagine you're trying to do a Uniswap vote, right? You really not understand exactly how Uniswap works, how the smart contracts execute, what's going on, what does liquidity provide, what percentage do they give to the liquidity pools, versus if you want to understand is this creator applicable as business, you can just watch their videos and understand pretty quickly. If you watch Mr. Beast videos, you're like, oh, this guy, like even if you had no knowledge of who he is, if you watch his videos, like, oh, I get how this guy is really entertaining and could sell other stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I'm curious to know if you guys are if not CreatorDAO, you, Michael, are going to try to find ways to allow fans to literally invest in the creators that they watch. So, like, own, let's say, an up and coming influencer or up and coming creator wants to fractionalize their brand because they need money to grow, early fans can invest in those creators and earn some sort of dividend if they blow up, if that creator does blow up, like Mr. Beast or like Jake Paul, for example.
Yeah, we thought about that. I think the current regulatory environment is not as friendly towards that. By putting in a DAO, you sort of get the ability to do that without the DAO itself invests, but no individual person is investing. There's a subtle difference between what securities are. Like we never promise a return on our investments, right? Like the DAO itself is building up its treasury to create more good in the world, so we can continue to do this. Versus if we start issuing dividends, it depends. Like I think you've seen stuff like Royals do it with NFTs and issues. I would argue say dividend type like income. Depending on how you do it, like it's definitely like one. I always love that idea, and it's something we've explored, but you got to be very careful how you do it. Some people can do it under different like regulatory. So you can do a Reg A kind of scary, or you can say, hey, it's really more like a digital collectible, and this is like a nice to have, but there's no promise of return here. But the core theory of like how to get people involved in supporting careers or creators early on is still what we want to implement. The promise of returns is where you really have to draw the line on securities. To be honest, but I do hope for a world that people can do that because it's actually a better world. It's in some ways a reflection on how a lot of times NFTs even work, right? If people bet on a community early on, the NFT starts increasing in value in a completely decentralized way, right? Everybody's just increasing the value of that community. And I think DAOs have the ability to do that without even using NFTs and being more, you know, more precise about it.
No doubt. It's ideal, but probably not a good fit at the moment, given the regulatory environment and atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's up to the government to actually be more clear. Like this is again, we've seen this again and again. They're just not super clear about what is allowed or not, and we've been, I would say, one of the safest about it. So we're very clear. The DAO invests, individuals don't invest, right? So the DAO can do what it does in a decentralized way, but we ourselves are not promoting this as an investment, nor should anybody look at it on that front. But I have seen people say there is, especially with NFTs, a careful line you could draw. So again, I think we're being extra safe about it, but I do think there is a mass opportunity to make what you just said a reality.
Taking it back to the search, how many videos have been submitted up? Well, first of all, when did the search start? And then from its inception to now, how many videos have been submitted?
It started late December. 2,000 plus videos were submitted, and 450,000 votes were cast, I think, about. With actually still, that's probably an outdated number because we had some come in. And then it was, 25 million views on TikTok for the various videos. So some of them went viral, some of them were really small. I mean, that's the beauty of the search is it truly is like a decentralized system trying to find creators. And so the great thing is like, yeah, some people had videos that a million people watch, or it got at least a million views. I don't know how many people watched it per se, most likely somewhere around that. And some got like very few, and then the community voted. So yeah, it was thousands of hours of watch time across all the different videos that were submitted.
Are you guys still taking video submissions?
We're not. It's about to end. It's down to the final four right now, and then as the final decision, we send to the outside. So today, we are, we're still off chain for now, but right now it's in the hands of the judges. So people like Paris Hilton, the Chase Milkers, Jake Paul are voting now. And again, this is one of the great things is I think a lot of people pay lip service to decentralization versus we truly are decentralized. Like I didn't cast a vote because I was like, I don't want people to think the founder decided, but we've just passed it to judges, and there's some of the most creative people in the world. They actually have a better sense of who might be a better fit for investment than even I would, right? So we have to think about what are things that are decentralizable from a decision-making standpoint early on. But it's so easy for some, like honestly, like people think it's more complicated, but you can put tokens behind anything. You can decentralize your local coffee store if you wanted to. But is it better decentralized? And the answer for most things is actually not necessarily. For us, it's very clear. Like you can tell, I'm an older guy. What do I know about who's going to be in next to like Charlie D'Amelio? But enough people who are creators voting in. And the great thing is it's owned by the community. Like each time a creator joins, they become then a DAO member and they get to pick the next one. So it gets actually better and better with time.
Yes, certainly agree. I think we saw this quite evidently in the previous bull market. Not everything needs to be a DAO. Not everything needs to be decentralized. In fact, sometimes quite the contrary is more advantageous to a company or to a protocol or to an organization.
Yeah.
Michael, so you guys are down to the final four, and the voting is all done by members of the DAO. How are members of the DAO selected? Is it just entirely based on notoriety, follower count? Would love to know more about that process, because I do see the Jake Paul, Chainsmokers, Paris Hilton, Kygo, Liam Payne, Joe Matek, so on and so forth.
They were chosen because they were the ones who provided the capital for this investment. They're like, hey, we believe in creators in the future, so all of them are investors in the company. We went out there and we asked people who were Web3 friendly, and we really went to them like, I mean, it was shocking. We're like bigger than any social token in existence. We have today the biggest group of creators represented down, and people always ask me how we got them. And when we had this conversation with them, like person by person, like, hey, there's no token to show right now. Please, like, there's no token to talk about. You never see Jake Paul talking about CreatorDAO tokens or Paris Hilton. Like, instead, we want you to help us make better decisions on the creators we invest. And they all love that. They're like, and instead, we want you to think about what would it look like to mentor the next generation of creators. And that's what got them all interested. They were like, it's a partial crypto story in the sense that we're like, hey, we want you to be the true decision makers here, and a partial like, hey, they want to give back in some way to a community that made them famous.
Beautiful. So once the final votes are in and ultimately a winner is selected, then what? What's the next chapter look like?
That's the other really cool thing. I mean, again, somewhere down the line, we're going to decentralize the entire system, and you'll truly see this big game from that. It's already like, it's off chain, but the decision making is already, you could see, already decentralized. We have to test, hey, are truly people making the right decisions? Are they doing things? But one of the big other things is, how can this community help each other add value? So the great thing again about creators is some of the big creators can promote these people, right? Like if Chainsmokers or Paris Hilton chooses to promote the creator that ends up selecting, and a lot of them have said they would, that makes the creator investment suddenly pay off. So by having a community come together to increase value, there's more value add than one individual entity. Right? I could be a VC fund that says, hey, I invest in creators. As soon as we invest, we're gonna, produce a big video for you. That's great, and it's totally fine. And instead, what's way cool, I think, hey, this community of creators that represent 180 million followers, they're gonna think of ways to help you grow. And it's gonna, not all of them are gonna be like have the best ideas, but as a community, they're coming together. And to me, that's the powerful thing. Like especially when I'm speaking to people who are not crypto forward, I'm like, hey, just replace the words DAO with community, and then suddenly they get it, right? Like, who's gonna add value? The DAO. Well, what does the DAO mean? Well, the community is going to be the one to add value and really help the creator. And lots of cool people have agreed to, like, I'm going to do mentorship office hours. Like Gary Tan, who's president of YC, says, hey, I'm going to mentor, like, for an hour, the winner. So does Sriram and Andreessen, right? You as a typical creator, you're just not getting that kind of high level business mentorship that I think is missing in the creator economy. And they've agreed to do that. And again, yes, it's partially because they're investors. But the cool thing is, I just asked them, hey, what can you do to help? And they were the ones who came up with those ideas, right? So that's the cool part. It is a decentralized community coming together to help a creator instead of me saying, here's 5 things I want to do specifically for this creator. In some ways, again, I have to embrace, and I didn't like this back when I first read about it. It was like, embrace the ambiguity of like, they'll have to figure it out, right? Because people don't know who the creator is. There's a very big difference between semi creators and who can add value in which ways.
Mm-hmm. So this kind of bridges the gap between creators and aspiring creators and fans. You've mentioned or alluded a few times to potentially going from off chain to on chain
Yeah.
in the future. What does that look like?
So one of the things is, like, even in our process, there was a lot of behaviors that like our body and cheating, and we realized I would just be better on chain, right? It'll be easily trackable, easily able to remove some of the bots. And so one, we just think it's a better system for this. One of the things we found is when you decentralize the system without like first making sure everything works, is that especially a good decentralized system, you're giving away a lot of ability to adapt to situations. So we can't tell people when it's going to happen, but when decentralized, it's going to be something really cool we do for the entire community who like is involved in helping us pick, help support creators and do these things. But again, just either due to regulatory or like just not setting, we don't want to like set expectations this early on. When a decentralized is going to be a really cool process where people really like, I think part of the process also is just people want an easy experience, right? Like right now, if you have to connect your wallet to vote for your friend, you're probably not going to do it. So when you want the experience to be good enough, it's like one click what the process is today, where it's off chain, where people just log in via Facebook, they click and they vote. So that voting is the first start of that, which is just how do you make a decision within a DAO in an easy, nice way. And where it doesn't feel like, again, a lot of these things feel like DAO governance votes, and that's not like the average consumer is going to be really confused by that. I feel like, hey, here's a DAO governance vote versus, hey, here's a creator that as a DAO we want to invest in. Which one should we pick? Almost anybody can like handle that. That is not a complicated decision. And so, how can we bring that experience on chain? Is what a lot of our engineering efforts are focused on. The next thing that will happen is just literally like, hey, the creator will have proposals about how they might want to spend the money, and people can vote on that.
Michael, you've been very concise, but also thorough with your answers. I think you've given myself and the audience a broad understanding of what CreatorDAO is, what you guys have built, what the mission is going forward is something that is yet to be seen, but you've given us some insight and something to speculate on. Is there anything about CreatorDAO that I might have not asked or you want to share with us that we haven't covered? Go ahead and do so now.
Yeah, I mean, my only ask is if anybody here is a creator looking to start a business, shoot me a message on Twitter. That's the kind of people we're here to support, right? Like, if people are like, "Hey, I'm a creator," it doesn't like that's what we're trying to do. Invest in creators early, but a lot of times meeting them, we've given a lot of advice to creators. I think DAOs are in its infancy, so also bear with us as we build out stuff and it become more and more obvious what we're doing. A lot of stuff is just I look at even a search as a test run. Like we could have gotten it wrong, right? We could have been like, hey, we're gonna invest, money creators, and nobody would have applied. And we were shocked by the reaction of the creator community, which was super positive. And our creators going out there and our DAO holders saying, hey, we're gonna add value in cool ways. They could have not done that. Jake Paul, Beresode, and all these people like, nah, we're not gonna do anything for you guys. But instead, they came together as a community. To me, like, I think the most powerful thing, and honestly, I don't deserve any credit. It truly is the community here at work that I am so grateful for. So, yeah.
When can we expect season 2? Is there a date set in stone yet, or
No, there's not. There's not, unfortunately. We gotta at least help the creators show that we could deliver stuff before we ramp up that.
What's your opinion on social media platforms of the future? Do you think TikTok is going to continue to capture more and more market share, or do you think other social media apps can kind of catch up to TikTok, or at least take a bit of that share back?
So I think what happens is every few years there's a platform shift, right? You saw this with Facebook when there was a platform shift to mobile. Suddenly, Instagram, TikTok all became the top apps. I think we are potentially looking like at a potential platform shift either with metaverse, VR, AR, than a new social media platform. We could be like a decade plus away from that for all we know. But the opportunities come usually when this platform shifts, not necessarily because of the startup. Because these companies tend to be fairly fast moving and fairly intelligent about things that I think the big shifts will happen when there's a platform shift. But I don't think like people always think no matter how strong companies they'll be able to stick around, and almost historically they've never been able to adapt to platform shifts as well as they should be able to. And arguably one of the platform shifts could be AI, right? Like people could say, Instagram won in the days of mobile, but suddenly when machine learning got smart enough and picking got smart, that's when TikTok overtook it. So I think TikTok is probably going to be a dominant platform for a bit until another platform shift happens. But that platform shifts happen, it's really tough to predict. I think that's an entire job of VCs to figure out when platform shifts happen. And when they do, that's when the opportunity opens up. Just think about how many companies became unicorns because mobile suddenly opened up. And you saw there was two waves. There's the first wave of just like consumer apps, like suddenly all these companies like Instagram became WhatsApp, became billion-dollar companies because it was an even playing field, right? You like suddenly everybody's downloading an app for the first time, so you're not having the advantage that a Microsoft or Google had because it's a green field. You're gonna see that with wherever the next big platform shift is. But you also see it happen twice, usually enterprise the next one. So Slack, for example, right? Like there were messaging platforms before that, usually desktop focused, and then suddenly Slack, mobile, Discord, like the communication layer became very competitive again.
You're very good with drawing these analogies and giving real world examples, Michael.
Oh, thank you.
So we've talked about AI quite a bit on this
Mm-hmm.
channel, and I am under the impression that there's this sea of untapped creativity that isn't out there because the individuals having these thoughts or these ideas aren't able to express them, and that whether that expression is in the form of writing, whether that's in the form of programming, whether that's in the form of just building an infrastructure that the individual who's having these thoughts doesn't have the aptitude, or rather the education to build. AI is going to allow these folks who otherwise might not be able to express their creativity, be able to express it in ways that they couldn't even imagine. So I'm curious to know what you think AI is going to do and what the advancement of AI is going to do for the creator economy.
Yeah, 100% what you just said. I think it's gonna open up a lot of things and make things easier. I think a lot of creators are sort of afraid, especially artists, right? But I think the whole goal of technology is to make our lives easier. Like imagine taking a long time to write a script, and ChatGPT just writes it for you, so you could focus on the aspects that are more about creativity, more about opportunities that what people enjoy, right? If you still want to paint art, go paint art. But if you don't and you have something in your mind and you want to write like a storybook, now you can use a combination of ChatGPT 3 Midjourney to write that. Like you hear these stories about people who have used AI to do things they haven't been able to do, and that to me is the big thing. Like I think good AI should not stand in the way. If you want to still be an artist and painter, you should be able to do that. However, if you don't have that skill set, AI should be able to augment that, right? Like there's people like, this is a bad example, but like there's people maybe you don't know basic math that well and you have a calculator in front of you. That really helps you get the basic math so you could focus on the more interesting things. And so to me, the power of technology, like even forgetting AI, the power of technology is to make our lives easier so we can focus on the things we want. That's all. That is that. It's been for years and years from forget even AI, the internet, from farming in the early days. The whole goal was to make people's lives easier. And if technology doesn't do that, it's failed us as human beings.
What I like to say is that technology, whether it be AI or the internet or any other paradigm shifting innovation, it gives human beings more time to do human things.
I love that. You phrased it way better than I did.
Yeah, no, I just tried to bring it all together. Hey, look, Michael, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. And you've had quite the extensive career. You've done a lot of great and amazing things, and I would love to have you on again to talk about some of the other endeavors that you've explored and have you share your experience with our audience members. I think a lot of young entrepreneurs and a lot of young creators could benefit from your wisdom and the stories you have to tell.
Thank you. And thank you for putting this community together. I mean, it's one of a track. It's like, I mean, again, like people overemphasize sometimes the crypto side. Again, blockchain is also falls into that. It's technology to enable really cool things. And what you've built with this media group, what you've built with this community is the most important part, right? That is what DAOs are ultimately about. Sometimes they're on chain, but actually the more important story is you building this really cool community, getting all these listeners, helping me share my story as an entrepreneur, right? Like I had this opportunity because you built a community up, and everybody's riding on the backs of what you've built. So congrats on building such an awesome group of people, and amazing job. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah, Michael, I really appreciate that, and I have to say that I'm just a small piece of the puzzle. If you look in the audience, you'll probably see a lot of other core team members at Whale Coin Talk who have been working diligently, working hard, and working tirelessly for the last almost 2 years to build this community out, to build this ecosystem out. Whether it's the Whale Coin Talk mothership you see, whether it's the Aquarium podcast. It's been a great journey, and we really appreciate that recognition. I see the CreatorDAO Twitter in the audience as well. Thank you for being here, Michael. Thank you for being here. Audience members, if you liked what Michael had to share, go and give him a quick follow. He's got a lot of cool stuff on his Twitter. He's posted a lot of cool stuff, and I'm sure if you DM him and try to ask him some, or rather inquire some words of wisdom, he's always happy to share. I don't want to speak for you, Michael, but it does seem like
Yeah,
you're eager to
definitely.
help others out.
Yeah.
And if you could give the Whale Coin Talk account, the Aquarium, mine, follow as well. We really appreciate it. We try to bring you guys good content every day. This was the third of this is the third AMA of the day, so I'm a little bit tired here, but we're going to be back at it again tomorrow with 4 AMAs for you, I believe, maybe 5. So stay tuned for those. And remember, everything that you hear on these broadcasts is meant for educational purposes only. Nothing is financial advice. So be safe out there, everyone. Michael and the CreatorDAO team, thank you so much again. Take care.
Thank you so much, Noah, and all the rest of your team. Appreciate it.